Well, good afternoon. I thank you for being here today. I am Roger Caswell. I'm the Executive Director of the Jones Institute for Educational Excellence, but I'm also the current president of PDK, and this is the Teachers College Speakers Series sponsored by PDK. And so, again, this is our second one this year. We do have another one very quickly on November 12th. It's a Tuesday. It's with Dr. Dusty Howell and his experiences abroad this past summer. I think he presented in 8 different countries. So that's one for Tuesday, November 12th. But let's move on to today's. This is Common Core, Uncommon School, Teaching and Learning in the Walton Rural Life Center in Walton, Kansas. Population 235. Our presenters are Dr. John Morton, Matisse Vogt, and Derek Richland. Yep. Okay. And I'm just going to turn it over to them.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon and provide some insights into our journey to transform Walton from a struggling small enrollment elementary school to, I think, a premier charter school that has succeeded even beyond our wildest hopes and expectations. I had the good fortune to be superintendent of the Newton School District for 11 years, and during that time we looked at a number of initiatives, and Walton was actually our second charter initiative. We wrote our first charter grant to create an entrepreneurship center at the high school, and we had a very active and very progressive vocational agriculture program at the high school, and so it just seemed to make sense as we were struggling to find ways to help Walton succeed, to increase enrollment, to create a viable educational alternative. This is what we settled on and what we're going to talk about this afternoon. I want to tell you a little bit about the other 2 folks that have joined me. I had the good fortune to be able to work with them for several years. Matisse Vogt has an interesting background. She was a special education teacher, an adaptive special education resource person, and so she had, and interestingly enough, we had no idea at the time just how vital those kinds of skills and experiences would be for her, because one of the unintended consequences of Walton is that we increased our percentage of special needs students to about 25% at one point of our total student body. And interestingly enough, the special needs students thrive in this kind of environment. So it was great to be able to mesh that experience base that she had with this. Matisse was recognized just recently by Tabor University with the Alumni Merit Award there. Has been a stalwart in this battle. She wasn't even sure she wanted to do this trial. I twisted her arm just a little bit, and the rest has just been so positive. Derek Richling is an ESU graduate. He had no idea what he was walking into when he first came to Walton, because I guess all happened during your second year. But again, with his background, he did a lot of work in instructional technology here at the university. It just came to fruition. Going to his classes, as I had an opportunity to do, there were always opportunities for him to integrate technology just seamlessly into the lessons that he was presenting, and it was a joy to be able to bring those skills to bear as well. So we're going to start off with a video that was made by the U.S. Office of Education about Walton. We were just very pleased. Then I'll talk a little bit about how we got to that point. Matisse will share the principal's perspective about the school. Derek will share the classroom perspective. We're going to talk a little bit about, so now what? Now where do we go from here? And then we'll allow time for your questions and answers as well. So again, we're just delighted to be here, and if I can get the technology to work, why then we'll move to the next slide. Walton is our smallest school, and was basically struggling with enrollment. We've seen it happen in far too many communities in Kansas. When the school goes, the community's not far behind. We wanted to find a way to take an agriculture theme and make it work, to help our kids be more effective 21st century citizens. And we were very fortunate to receive funding to establish the charter here at Walton.
Walton, it's a good school. It's always been a good school. I had talked to the staff and said, you know, the only way we'll go ahead with this is if everyone is 100% on board. We really wanted to do a lot of integration, project-based learning, and so we just kind of jumped right in and started our own thing.
The thing that makes the school special is all of our animals and that we get to work with them. We have our goats and our chickens, and we do science with our chickens. Every morning we go into the chicken coop and we gather the eggs.
They wash them in disinfecting powder, coat them with mineral oil, check them for cracks, package them, they check and find out how many they're able to sell. We've got a group that's trying to decide what we're going to do with the money that they earn.
And I think getting our kids to consider possibilities that they might not have considered before, using technology to research things, how to use wind energy. Our kids have been using it here on the grounds.
My daughter was a fourth grader, and my husband and I referred to them as windmills. And we were quickly corrected that those are not windmills, those are wind turbines. Windmills pump water, wind turbines make electricity.
We also plant tomatoes and the peppers. Those were planted, I think, last year.
We are not trying to create a whole school of farmers. It's the project-based, hands-on, real-life learning that means a lot to the kids.
So try to make it so that people will be able to find this board and match it up with your paper.
One of our big science objectives is properties. So we were taking the boards and looking at the properties, and eventually we will make a Venn diagram.
A lot of schools use books, doing that repetition work. Here we're doing projects.
We take those projects based on student interest and ideas.
We are making planter boxes for a fundraiser for our classroom.
When we were cutting up the wood, we had to use math because we had to measure the wood to the nearest quarter of an inch.
Very good. And so they're getting that hands-on learning. So they're actually learning how to use their knowledge to produce something instead of just repeating it down on paper. Okay, that's fine.
As far as math skills and measurement, they're learning things at an earlier age, and that makes a big difference.
The kids are in multi-generational groups, and they work on character education. We work on healthy lifestyles. We teach the kids that they can get additional oxygen to their brains by walking, and it helps them be better students.
All right, we'll break up into our 3 groups. Mrs. Black will make their granola. My group, when you're with me, we're going to design the label that goes on it.
What I noticed at Walton is that they're building thinkers, students who are able to problem solve. They're not necessarily students that want information spoon-fed to them. They have higher level of thinking capabilities.
And you think when you look at this, would you buy this granola because of all the colors? So when you design your label today, are you going to use a lot of colors?
The thing that we're trying to do is teach kids how to learn, and so they can take that skill once they've gotten excited about something and learned how to investigate and how to problem solve and where to go to do the research and how to contact resources. These are skills that kids are learning that can transfer to anything.
We've had some wonderful partners, and we've seen that our farm families in the area that have really collaborated with us to make this a rich experience.
We did a field trip. That's most of my employees worked pretty hard to put everything together.
The computer that's telling us everything this new combine's doing. That GPS is telling us as we go through the field, this combine can collect all the data and stores it on a card.
I really enjoy giving the kids an opportunity to see how they need math and how they need to read. And it just makes it a lot easier when you can show them why they need to know that.
Something that they really focus on is that you are responsible for your own actions. And they learn responsibility with the animals because those animals have to be taken care of.
My son actually was autistic and went through the program and has now moved on to be a very functional kid.
Now, who will help me?
We have kids coming to school sick because they don't want to stay home.
No more sympathy for me.
We've always had good test scores. What we have seen since we began the charter is that they have become amazing test scores. We're in the top 5% of schools in the state of Kansas.
This school, I think, has just been a godsend to the town because it's been so successful. And our last 3 years, our scores of our kids have really proven that it is a very good way of teaching kids.
They've done some wonderful things here that I think can be replicated. Christmas knows we face lots and lots of challenges and lots of problems. I want lots of problem solvers in Washington as well as any place else. Everybody got a book?
Kids can be excited about learning and want to learn when what they're learning makes sense to them. We have received the Governor's Achievement Award for 2 years, which means we were in the top 5% of schools in the state of Kansas as far as our test scores. Project-based learning really works. It doesn't have to be exactly like ours. Any teacher can take what we've done and include it in their teaching.
Hopefully that gives you a good overview of what we did. We were very excited about the possibility. We wrote the charter grant, didn't hear for a little while, and then once we heard, everything became fast-tracked for us. We ended up having to do the first 2 years of the grant in 1 year. So we did planning and implementation at the same time, which was kind of interesting. We managed to survive and then have everything in place so that we could move forward. We were fortunate we were able to build some additional facilities to kind of augment what we already had at the school. Can you just give you a brief idea? In 1871, the first one-room school was constructed in the Walton area. So we started with a one-room schoolhouse there. By 1934, we had a K-12 rural school district in the Walton area. Walton is about 6 miles northeast of Newton, just off of Highway 50. You've probably been through Walton. Maybe if you've gone that way, you probably didn't even know it, because if you blink, you're through the town pretty quickly because it's very small. In 1963, with the significant consolidation effort that occurred in Kansas, Walton became a part of the Newton Public Schools, USD 373. We submitted our charter grant to the Kansas State Department of Education in 2007. In 2008, our grant was approved, and we put on roller skates, and I think we haven't taken them off since because things have moved forward at a great rate. We were blessed with back in the days when, as superintendent, I actually had some money to operate the district with. We were able to afford a grant writer. Barbara Burns was our grant writer at the time and did an absolutely first-rate job of writing our charter grant. And then following that, once things fell into place, it was just tremendously exciting. We had our own charter advisory committee, and I think we still do at the school, that advises the staff in the school and kind of serves as a sounding board. The interesting thing, it was hard for some of my staff members in the school district to kind of let go and let Walton be its own entity, because that's one of the joys of being a charter school, that we have to give greater autonomy. But once we kind of did it, because eventually what happened was I ended up saying Walton will report directly to me as superintendent, and that seemed to work out the kinks, and the rest worked pretty smoothly. We have seen just an incredible amount of interest in the school. I've been a fan of John Dewey forever, and I think it's almost ironic that Dewey had it right all those years ago when he said kids need to learn by doing. Excuse me. So I'm going to turn to these folks, and they're going to talk with you about the nuts and bolts of how Walton operates, and I'll turn to Natisse first and let her visit with you.
It's hard to explain the dynamics of the school. You almost have to be there. Like Dr. Morton said, we filled out the application for the charter process in September, I believe. And they put off the deadline with the State Department. I'm not sure how much you're familiar with charter schools. A charter school is part of the public school system. In Kansas, there's a couple states, 2 states as a matter of fact, where as a charter you are required to be part of a school district. And so we have to answer to the Newton School Board. But we kind of decided we wanted to do things a different way. And every year since then, we found out in April, and as of August 1, we had to open up as a charter school, or we would lose a year of funding. We received $45,000 for 3 years, and that's startup expenses because you're going to have a lot of new expenses with materials and staff development, those kinds of things. The charter money cannot be used for buildings. So we do a lot of fundraising, and it was wonderful to have the autonomy. As a special ed teacher, I taught students with severe multiple disabilities for 21 years, and I was into hands-on learning. That made the most sense for my students. They would be able to learn something in one situation, say in school, you know, if you have a model of a pop machine, they would learn how to put money in and it was all great, but when they got out into the community, they had no idea how to buy a can of pop. So it was important to do these hands-on, real-life learning experiences, and that was something I threw out to the staff when we talked about it, and they thought, yeah, that might work. We had no idea the impact that it would have. Our students, many of the projects are based on just agriculture, and the way we do things is the teachers know the standards inside and out. They used to know the Kansas state standards for math and reading and science. Now we have learned to be part of the Common Core, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Common Core. It takes fewer subjects, but you go deeper than you're used to. When we had the Kansas state standards, they had to learn so many different things in math. Now we have fewer things, but you need to learn it deeper and have a better understanding. So doing project-based learning and these hands-on experiences just fit beautifully. So we haven't had that much of a transition. But some of the projects we do are based on a classroom experience. For example, kindergarten, one of the science standards is the life cycle. And so what we do is incubate eggs, the chicken eggs. And we bought a brand new technological incubator, and that was part of our technology emphasis. So the kids could actually look in with a form of a microscope, and you could see the inside of the egg. And we had a chart of all the stages of development of the chick embryo. So our kindergarten kids would look into an egg. You didn't have to candle it, hold a candle up and look, try to see if you could see anything. They could look inside the egg and say, oh, it looks like this. Therefore, these eggs must be 2 weeks along. Okay, that kind of gives you an example. Then, once they're hatched and you have never experienced the entire school in one room, and we had a digital microscope on the incubator, and we projected it up on a TV screen, so all of the kids were in there sitting so quietly because, of course, we told them if you make too much noise, the chicks will be scared to hatch. So everyone is dead silent, and they're watching, and you can see the little beak peck its way out and watch this chicken be born. It's just amazing. So then they keep them in the room. During that time, they might weigh them daily, so they're using math skills by weighing and measuring. And as they grow, they grew to the point where they would start flopping around. Their wings would start working. At that point, the kindergarten teacher said, I want them out of here. So we had some dads that built a chicken coop for us. Well, we raise them. We have layers. We have hens who lay eggs. And part of our morning chores is collecting the eggs. Well, then our second graders take over, and they decided that they wanted to sell the eggs. So they had to do a business plan for me. They had to investigate and find out how much eggs were. They had to write how they would market them, what their plan was to get the word out, just a variety of things. So you can see how we're integrating math and writing. For research, we found numerous books about chickens. We start with the very simple little books on chickens, so the kids start reading that way. But by second grade, we take a second grade reading level and they learn. They read and investigate. What are the different types of chickens? We had second graders last year that one of their projects was to learn how the eggshell is formed. They wanted to get that involved with it. Another group wanted to learn what process does the chicken go through to develop an egg. I mean, you can just see kids' minds spinning and whizzing as we go. So then they decided that they were going to sell the eggs, which we had gotten permission to do, and we checked into all the regulations, and they were going to sell a dozen eggs. Well, how much does that cost? So they get ads from the newspaper, and they checked, they went to stores, and eggs at that time were selling for like $1.87 a dozen. They decided to make money, they would sell them for $2 a dozen, and it was okay because they were farm fresh. When you get them from the store, they've already been processed and through the whole 9 yards. Well, the kids, our second graders, can tell you which chickens lay eggs by the color of their legs. They turn smoky white when they're laying. They can tell you that they're ready to lay if their vents are open. I mean, our second grade kids can tell you facts that just would astound you. They can tell you that it takes 12 hours of sunlight for a chicken to be able to lay an egg. They know all of their multiples of 2 because they charge $2 a dozen. They made a chart with 1 dozen $2, 2 dozen $4, 3 dozen, so they're learning all of their multiples of 2. They also can tell you all the multiples of 12 because in 1 dozen eggs there are 12. In 2 dozen eggs there's 24. So you can see how we tie in math with that. The kids were concerned we recycled egg cartons, and they were concerned that it was faulty advertising because it might have the brand of the eggs on there. So to be fair, they wanted to come up with their own design. So they painted them yellow, the cover of the eggs, because of the egg yolk and because of the amount of sun that it would take for a chicken to lay an egg. And then they wanted to make it pretty, so they tied yarn on it, and then they created their own label that said, "Thank you for buying Walton Rural Life Center eggs." Our kids also then have the real money in hand. I mean, you come to our school and say, "I want to buy a dozen eggs." You will have a child come bring the dozen eggs to you and tell you how much that was going to be. We keep it in a bag, and periodically the kids will count the money. And we have seen incredible money skills because on worksheets, it's kind of hard to distinguish between a nickel and a quarter, you know, when it's black on white. And penny, all the coins, it's difficult, but our kids use real money and learn that way. So they have incredible math skills. By the end of last year, each year then the class decides what they're going to do with their money. Typically they split it in half and do 2 things. One thing for the entire school and one thing for just their classroom. For example, a couple years ago they purchased 2 fruit trees for our school because they knew you had to have 2 to cross-pollinate and all those things. But last year they decided they wanted to have more sheep, so they researched and found out how much it would cost if we got bottle lambs, how much milk replacer they would need, how much that costs, and then they purchased 2 iPads. They collected enough money selling eggs to purchase 2 iPads for their classroom, as well as being prepared for the next year with their sheep. So that kind of gives you an example how we pull all of the standards together and integrate them into these projects. One of the quick examples that I can tell you from Derek's class, when we were taking the state assessments, and I can tell you this because it's no longer a question on the state assessments, but a number of years ago when we started this, one of the questions was, what utensil would you use to measure an acre? Well, in their math book, an acre was a square about this size. And so the answer frequently was a ruler. They would use a ruler to measure an acre. The year they took a field trip to a farm and had the rolling measuring tape and walked off an acre, they realized you wouldn't want to do that with a ruler. And so now our kids understood how big an acre actually is. So they have the concrete learning that's so important with understanding. As a result, you can see how that helps kids with special needs. Our kids, you walk into the school and you can't tell which kids have an IEP for a learning disability or whatever reason. Part of that is because we have what we call our learning lab, and if you need help with something, you go to the learning lab. We don't talk, no one there has a clue that we have special education. They just know if you need help, that's a place to go. The other thing that we learned is when they're up and learning and doing things, their behavior is different. You don't have the boredom. You don't have the behavioral issues because kids are having to sit in desks and their minds are wandering. As a result, we've had times when we have numerous kids with significant behavior issues. We have a mental health facility in Newton called Prairie View, and they used to bring a van out to our school because they had so many kids that would come to our school and are successful at our school with emotional disturbances, and we never had a problem. They couldn't make it in any of the other schools in town, but when they're out in the garden with their chore boots on digging, their behaviors were totally different. Our school social worker loves the fact that we have animals. This year so far we have 9 chickens and 1 bottle calf and a donkey and 10 pigs. We're going to be getting sheep soon. And a dog. We have a school dog. We had a family that donated a golden retriever to us. And so the kids named him Buddy, and the kids are helping us with his training, and he will learn to be a therapy dog. But our social worker finds that when she is trying to get through to a child and talk to them when she's sitting in her office, they're not going to talk to her. Partially because sometimes parents have taught them, don't tell anybody what goes on in our house. But if they go out and work with animals and they're feeding or brushing the animals, the kids relax and feel more comfortable and will tell you exactly whatever it is that's troubling them. So we have examples of classroom projects, like the 2nd grade always does the eggs. But we also have projects that students create on their own because they have an interest. These were 2 3rd grade boys last year that remembered back when we had the incubator and they hatched eggs. So they wanted to try their hand at creating an incubator. They took a styrofoam cooler and researched the whole 9 yards and had duck eggs. And they knew it needed heat, they knew it needed moisture, so they used a mister, and they had a sign on this for our energy person that says, please do not turn off this light. One of the other things that we talk about at Walton is it's okay to fail. And I tell the kids frequently, I made a mistake, I blew it. So I do the thinking process out loud with them. Okay, what can I learn from that experience? We had some horribly smelly duck eggs because it didn't work. But the kids turned that into a learning experience. Okay, so let's do some problem solving. What do you think happened that the eggs didn't? Well, they came up with the fact that they didn't have consistent moisture in there. If they missed it at once a day, that wasn't going to be enough. So maybe next time they would keep a little bowl of water in there. And the other thing was they learned that the lamp was too hot and too close to the eggs, so it actually kind of cooked them. But it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. So you can see an example of a classroom project. You can also see an example of student individual learning. Last year we had sheep that gave birth, and the kids can tell you it's ewes and they lamb and the whole 9 yards. And during a snowstorm in January, they were concerned that it would be too cold in the barn for them. So we had a couple boys, actually those two and another one, that wanted to create solar heat. So they researched and made their own solar heating system. They had some parents help and made a wood case that was probably about 3 feet by 3.5, 4 feet. They used pop cans and drilled holes in them and lined them up, put plexiglass across the top. They used black barbecue paint because that wouldn't peel off. Regular paint in the heat would peel off. And then on the top, they drilled a hole, a big hole, and they put, what was it, Derek? What kind of hose?
Oh, like a pool.
Okay, pool, a swimming pool hose in there. Well, they stuck a meat thermometer in there, and it actually created heat because heat rises and was forced out the tubing. It was 150 degrees. But that's the heat. They learned about solar heat. It could be any range of things. I could go on and on and on and tell you all kinds of ideas of projects. Our school never looks the same 2 years in a row because you have no idea what the kids are going to come up with, what their interests are. One thing we do is have an ag fair every May, and students are required to present a project. So these are boards. There's some examples. Now sometimes it's not a board. Sometimes it might be actual hands-on learning experiences, but the kids have to be able to present and share information with others. We invite businesses, parents, community members, anyone and everyone to come at our ag fair, and the kids have to stand and share what they have learned. And that's a 21st century, one of the Common Core skills. So our children are very articulate. They will grab you as you walk by and say, hey, would you like to learn about manure and what it can do? You know, they'll do a research project over here, manure is fertilizer. And so they would do compare contrast with different animals' manure to see what works the best, and they can give you the nitrogen content and all the information about it, and they'll tell you which one works the best. All right, I could go on, but I won't. I will turn it over to Mr. Richley.
There we go. As Dr. Ward said, I'm an Emporia State grad, and when he was talking about the idea of us presenting, obviously you have to come and help. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while since I've been on campus. I graduated in 2004, and I came back. I had the opportunity to stay and get my master's, and then my first real teaching job was at Walton. The first year, normal classroom, just how you expect it was going to be. Then we started working on the charter, and it hasn't stopped since. It has been fantastic. A lot of these projects that you see are kind of like journals. They're things that we do through the year. It's not free, do it at the end of the year, get it down. This is what we've done. It's things that have happened all through the year. Now with the hands-on, it's completely different. It's almost awkward at first. It doesn't seem right. Am I teaching this right? Am I teaching this wrong? Are the kids learning anything? Because it doesn't seem like a traditional classroom. It's more, it looks like play almost. And one example, one of the projects that we did probably 4 years ago now, I believe, is 4th grade, we studied life cycles of butterflies. And the students always kept asking, can we get this for the classroom? Can we get this? And the answer is no funding. That's just how it is. And they said, well, how about if we create something and then we can keep the money and we can buy things that we want for the classroom? You go, give me an idea. What do you want to do? And they go, well, let's build butterfly houses. I'm like, what is a butterfly house? I've heard of bird houses. And so a group of kids researched on the internet and found blueprints for butterfly houses. I was like, okay, I think we might have something here. And so I had, the whole class had teams. What is a butterfly house? What butterflies live in our region of Kansas? So they did that, and we're like, okay, it might be feasible. Okay, how are we going to start this business? It's going to take some money to start out. No funding. And so we had the banker, Mr. Esau. You saw him in the video. We had him come to our school and talk to the children in the 4th grade about a business loan. What is interest? What is all that stuff? What happens if you don't pay your loan back? Everything. That's one thing that kids need to know at an early age. And our students know money at an early age. How to manage it, what you can buy, what you can't buy, why you have to save, because things happen. Like lambs getting sick, whichever one it is, they have to buy medicine for. It's just things that happens. So once the banker, Mr. Esau, came in and told them about a loan, I told my group of kids that, okay, this is what we have to do. We have to make a business proposal, because I had someone who volunteered to loan us the $30 to start our company, because we figured that with the materials at cost was going to be around $30. And so one of my students' grandfathers said, I'll give you the money. And I was like, it's not going to be that easy. They're going to have to work for it. And so they did a complete research project over the history of nails, because you have to have nails to hold the butterfly houses together. They did the history of glue. They even found out why on Elmer's glue the cow is the logo. Because glue is from cow parts. 4th grade, they love that. And so they put all this information together. We had the grandfather come in the classroom, and we actually gave him a business proposition. They had to propose their business idea to them. And he was hard character. He's there, I don't know. And at the end, the students asked, will you help fund this? Because I think I can do it. So he loaned us the $30. And it just went from there. Now with their project, we had to do, in 4th grade, a big part is money and measurement. Now measurement with even fractions in there. The kids at first, when they could tell you exactly how many linear feet, how many square feet, board feet, everything. They even knew how many nails, approximately how many butterfly houses you could make with one bottle of glue. They figured all of that out. We had each butterfly house down to almost the penny of a cost. Now, if prices changed a little bit, we had to fluctuate. This is part of the economy. I was kind of mean to them a little bit when we did this, because with measurement, using a ruler, it's pretty simple. When you start talking about building something, you might have to know what 5/8 is or 3/4 or something. And so I had a tape measure that actually, I call it the cheater. It actually had the fractions on it, and so they could pull it out and they could tell exactly where 1 inch and 5/8 was at. So we started doing that. They got pretty comfortable. About halfway through this project, I took away those tape measures, gave them a regular one that looked identical. They had no idea. We finished out making the rest of the butterfly houses with them using just a regular tape measure, no fraction increments on it, anything. And now we focused hard on that because we continuously assess data. And that was a very, very, very weak point on state testing scores. So I knew I'm going to hit measurement hard with this unit. Like I said, they had no idea that they were measuring without the cheater tape measure. No fraction, just had an inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, and then they knew immediately where 5/8 was, everything. They had no idea until we built 300 some of them, built quite a bit, at sold $18 a piece. So you do the math. And they only cost about $5 to make. So all of that proceeds came to the classroom, funds projects. The kids decided that, hey, we need to give some money back. We need to make some donations. So they picked 5 charities in Harvey County. We did the school, we did the animal shelter, we did the homeless shelter, we did Heart to Heart, which is our domestic violence advocates, and
the Women's Center.
They had the Women's Center, Safe House, Howard County's Safe House was known. They wanted to donate money. I wasn't going to argue with them. And so by doing this whole project, we did our guided reading, because each group had to do their research project. They had to read about the glue. They had to do the research for the business proposition. So to even get started with the project, they had to be experts at it, pretty much. We did our writing, because they had to write the technical texts on how do you create this. Because, yeah, we used the blueprints that we found on the internet, but we kind of tweaked it to make it work for us, because they were pretty elaborate. Lots of fancy tools. I wasn't going to let fourth graders use a circular saw or even a router. You know, nail gun made me nervous enough using the nail gun. In the video, you don't see my hand never leaves that. I hold it, they squeeze the trigger, no problems. But it's things like that that the kids don't usually have the opportunities to do. And so these projects are everlasting. That one took about 3 months. Almost the same amount of time to do that project than it would be to teach them how to use money, how to use measurement, reading, writing, all those things. So we tied it into one giant project, and that's what the point of project-based learning is to teach through a project doing the stuff that you need to do anyways.
If you were to walk in the front door at Walton on any given day, the walls are kind of vibrating, as you might guess. The kids are so actively engaged in what's going on, it's just kind of amazing. I want to share just a real quick story, because then he's kind of reminded me. Our first foray with chickens, when we first got our chickens and the parents had built the chicken coop, and we were able to, I think it was a Friday, and we put all the chickens in the coop and left them food and water for the weekend. And we all came back to school on Monday, and there was not a chicken to be seen. What we found, and this was one of those teachable moments, that a group of very enterprising foxes had dug under the fence over the weekend and had helped themselves to the chicken smorgasbord that presented itself to them. So we learned that you have to put barriers down under the ground to keep animals from digging under the chicken wire to get into the chicken coop. Great object lesson. Not very pleasant for the children who had been so excited about the chickens, but it was a good learning opportunity, and we learned from it. But a lot of those kinds of things happen. Some of them unintended, some of them intended, as we go through. But we want to talk a little bit. So, okay, with all of this, the future. You all are very aware funding is very tight. It's very tough, and yet, in spite of all the constraints, Walton has continued to grow. The staff and community folks have cajoled the board. And by the way, one of the things that made this all work, our board of education at the time was unanimous in its support of this project. And that made a huge difference to us in moving ahead. So we'll talk a little bit. You see pictures of, these are some additional classroom units that have been installed this fall. They were just telling me there were some additional glitches this week, but I think move-in day starts tomorrow. Maybe, and these are 4 new classrooms. So you guys want to talk a little bit about, so where are we going? What's next? Where are we going from here?
One of the visions that we had, we were a single unit school, meaning we had 1 kindergarten, we had 1 first grade, and we used to be up through 5th grade. Now the Newton School District has a 5-6 center and a 7th-8 center, so our kids go into town and join the rest of them at 5th grade. So we were kindergarten through 4th. We now have, as a result of this, and the word has gotten out, and it has taken on a life of its own, and it's drug us along with it. We have 2 kindergartens, 2 first grades, 2 second grades, 1 third grade, and a huge 4th grade. Last year we had a combination 3rd, 4th, and so this year our superintendent wanted to put them all. We have 32 4th graders in a single little room. But we have used every nook and cranny. We turned an electrical closet into a reading room. We store all of the books in there, as well as have a reading specialist that takes small groups of kids that go in there. We kicked the music teacher out of her room and the art teacher out of her room, and those turned into classrooms. So we have art on a cart and music on a cart. It's not ideal, but that's kind of who we are. We do whatever it takes. And so we did a lot of fundraising. We had a mountain oyster fry 2 years in a row. I ate the pulled pork. I'm the man. I'm a city girl. I killed every house plant I ever had, and I cry when I see dead squirrels in the street. So this has been a learning experience for me. Never in my life would I have dreamed that I was an administrator in an agriculture school. And people who know me, it cracks them up. But anyway, we did a variety of fundraisers. Kids wanted to donate the money their class raised doing different projects. And then we had a wonderful donor who gave us $50,000. And then the school district decided they could get money back, and they actually ended up getting more money by the new facility waiting. And so they loaned us a little less than half of the money we needed. And we purchased a used portable, which gives us 4 classrooms. We were hoping to have it up and functional when school started. We didn't, so we had 2 kindergartens going half days in one room, a morning kindergarten class of 21 kids and an afternoon kindergarten class of 22. And then just a variety of things. So our goal in 2 years, we will be a full 2-unit school, having 2 classes of each grade. And it's interesting. We have visitors from all over the country. We have been featured in magazines, a variety of agricultural magazines. We were in American Profile. People have heard about us, and this is the part where I'm saying they pull us along kicking and screaming. This went nationwide. Yesterday, while our secretary was gone, and so I was wearing 3 different hats, nurse, secretary, and principal. I was doing lunch, and I had an elderly couple come in and say they were from Tennessee. This was in their weekend paper, and they read about us and were so excited that they came to visit. They were in the area and dropped by. We have had people from Australia and New Zealand who have heard about us and have come to see what we're doing. So that's the part that, to us, it just seems normal. That's who we are and what we do. But to others, it is something different.
And Derek, talk a little bit about your changing role, because you're in a little different position this year.
My new role, I used to be the 4th grade teacher. Then I had the opportunity that this year, instead of teaching the 32 4th graders, the district went more towards the goal or the focus of having more set science time. Typically, when you teach science, it's been when you can fit it in during the middle of the week. Now I teach kindergarten through 4th grade science. I meet with most of the classes 3 times a week. The older classes, their attention can last just a little bit longer, so I meet with them 2 times a week for 45 minutes. So they still get the same amount of time, it's just longer, it just fit our schedule better. And so with the new science standards that were deployed this year, we've just kind of jumped in as a team. Each building in the Newton School District has their elementary science teacher. And the way we kind of set it up is each one's kind of a specialist at 3rd grade level. So we have a kindergarten specialist in science, and we kind of share the workload. So that person is in charge of writing the kindergarten lessons for everyone to teach. Since I've taught 4th grade for the past 7 years, obviously I was the one that was going to be doing the 4th grade lessons. And so some of the stuff that we have done in the past worked, some didn't. And so we're spending a lot of time this year just finding out what works and what doesn't.
And for us, it was somewhat of a challenge because that's how, we're integrating everything. And now the district says you have to have someone teaching science. So of course, we fit it to our building. He specifically does the science standards that don't integrate into agriculture. And then he can team with the teachers. And so he might teach the concept and then help in the classrooms with projects with the science activities.
Right, like if they don't have the time to teach the core of the content, I get them started, I get them introduced to the vocabulary, the theory behind it, and then I work with the classroom teacher. So that way, when they want to start doing their unit or their theme for the whatever content they're doing, their project, thank you, they already have the base knowledge, and so it's just that much quicker.
We're very fortunate too. One of the things that we included in Walton from the outset was that we built our own greenhouse, so the students have access to the greenhouse. And we also wrote a second grant that allowed us to construct a wind turbine. And the wind turbine actually powers the greenhouse, provides the power for the greenhouse. And that's where the kids get the additional exposure to wind energy. We were talking just a little bit. Megan's has a brother who is going to help us become a fully solar-powered school, hopefully in the future. So we're going to see how that works as well. Well, Obviously, we could talk for a long time about Walton. It's just an exciting thing. I think the thing that is most gratifying to me, having been the superintendent when all this happened, is that it's just exceeded beyond my wildest expectations, and it's succeeded because of folks like these who work so tirelessly every day. We've had incredible support from our families, from the farm families in the area. It's just been amazing. From the Mid-Kansas Co-op, from a variety of folks. It's just been the Farm Bureau. It's amazing how we can link to a lot of those community resources. We're going to stop at this point and see if you all might have some questions, and we'd like to have some time to answer any questions that you might have that you might like to ask Derek or Natisse or me about our program, about the things that we've been doing.
Did the sheep keep warm?
Yes, the sheep were warm. One fun little fact, they were actually born, of course, during a snowstorm, and as staff, we all go out and chore on weekends and holidays, and we had a parent who, the little boy, he was 3rd grade last year at the time, was so worried about those sheep, so he insisted that they lived closer and could get through the snow. They went and checked on the sheep, and lo and behold, the lambs were born. Well, somehow that story, from our Facebook page, the story got out. A children's book writer, learned about it, came to Walton, and has written 2 stories, one fiction and one factual, about Clayton and his lambs. And those are going nationwide as well.
You might want to like Walton on Facebook. It's an amazing way to keep up with what's going on at the school. It's kind of fun to see how that all happens. Yes?
I'm in music education, preparing music educators, and I was just wondering, I know it's so difficult with music to be on the card, especially if you want kids to play instruments and things. And I was also just wondering about the project learning, how your music teacher incorporates that into what she does.
This year we have a brand new first-year teacher as a music teacher, and she has all kinds of ideas, tying it in, doing stomp things with it.
Right.
She has really struggled with the cart. It's been difficult for her. She is so tickled that hopefully Monday she'll get to move into her room and have her own room. But she's got all kinds of ideas. All of the specials work together with us and with the teachers. For instance, our art teacher was teaching a unit on all the different artists, and she created a mural, and every child had a pig and had to paint the pig in the style of that artist. So we have a Salvador Dali pig, we have a Picasso pig, we have an Andy Warhol pig. It's just a huge board. And an interesting idea that she had, she took kids out and taught them how to draw animals. Well, then the teacher took that and had it on paper with the lines, and our first graders had to write a story about Petey the goat. They drew Petey, they had to write a story about Petey. Their writing blew away our writing continuum. We had first graders writing like 3rd graders because they were so excited about Petey and could draw him. So we try to tie in as much as we can. One fun fact that I thought I'd share, people are so excited about their kids coming that we ended up with a waiting list. And right now, our waiting list for kindergarten is kids coming to kindergarten is through the year 2019. Think about it. We have mothers who are pregnant who call and put their unborn children on our waiting list.
I have a question. Your school is K-4, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Tell us about the transitions that these students make when they go to a traditional school.
We had Mr. Richling as our 4th grade teacher, and it was wonderful. He worked with the kids in 4th grade to be able to transition back into a general ed classroom. What we're doing is trying to teach the kids how to learn. And so they learn about research, they learn about a variety of things. How to investigate, how to learn. And that's a skill that translates well back into a general classroom. In high school, we have a wonderful ag program. The problem is that 5, 6, 7, 8, and we've had an architect that's worked with us and has created plans for a building through 8th grade. So that's something we're contemplating. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
I've actually got 3 questions.
Only
sorry.
one.
I'm kidding. I can combine them in one if you want to. You talked about the waiting list. So is there like an application process for the kids to be accepted into your school?
Students who live in the Walton attendance area are automatically accepted.
Okay.
Then we allow applications from outside of the district. I don't know what percent you probably have outside.
We are probably about 60% outside of Newton, or outside of Walton. We open it up in Walton. From there we go to Newton. Any child in Newton that wants to come. If we still have room, we open it up outside of the district. We have parents who live 30 miles away that bring their children to Walton because they want them there.
What about grading practices? Do you guys use like a standards-based grading approach?
That's been difficult for us. What we do is pull out math as far as grades. We pull out reading and grade that. Our district has the basic, novice, proficient, and exemplary in elementary, and so we give those same scores. We use a rubric as far as projects go and have expectations, and so we have that as a separate goal.
So is that what makes your guys' grading practices different than, let's say, a traditional elementary school in the Newton School District? Is the project rubrics, but other than that, your grading practices are the same?
Right.
Yeah, typically, when you think about your grade cards, you teach them a lesson, they take a test, that's their score. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Ours is, like my measurement unit, when we were having the kids take the tape measure the wood and everything, you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind, okay, I need to watch for this. So I need to make sure that I see at least everybody several times do this. As they're doing it, I'm walking through, I'm marking off. Are they actually demonstrating this skill? Because growing up, I was horrible at tests. I can tell you the information. When it comes on a test, it was like I didn't even know what the topic was. But I could show you, but I didn't have that opportunity. And a lot of kids that can't express themselves, they can't think quickly. Show me, and they can do that.
Yeah. And then lastly, what's your relationship like with the other elementary schools within the district? Is there I'm just curious in terms of how are you perceived or viewed by the other elementary schools?
That's a touchy subject. Early on, we were disliked immensely because all we did was play. And we were Dr. Morton's favorite. So we got all this extra money. No one took the time to realize that we were doing all of our own fundraising, that I spent part of my time going to ag businesses and soliciting money, asking them to partner with us to do a donation. And they had no idea that teachers were there at 7 in the morning and often 7 at night and on weekends. We worked very hard, and I think now we're accepted. There are still those who just think we're worthless, and there's no changing their minds.
Do you have any type of collaboration at all with the other?
We do.
Your grade level teachers?
Mm-hmm. We have the grade levels that meet together at collaboration. We have all kinds of staff development. Basically, what we have done is give up our personal staff development that would really benefit us to be a part of the school district and in their collaboration and staff development, and then we do our own on the side. One of the questions about the middle school, one of the things that we hear all the time from the middle school teachers is that you can always tell a Walton kid because they know the information, they're respectful, and they really care about learning.
One more question.
How do you get the word out? How do you spread the Walton gospel.
The fact that the U.S. Department of Education came and did a video on us, all of the, I can't even tell you how many publications we've been in the newspaper. That's kind of a joke. We're probably featured in our Newton paper weekly, if not more. There's something about Walton, and that's a touchy subject. How come you're the only ones getting the... We don't go out and ask or tell people. It's all by word of mouth. The other thing is parents talk to other parents and say, you won't believe what my kid is doing at Walton compared to what they did. If you would come and talk to parents, they are 310% behind what we're doing. So we haven't really done anything to advertise or talk about us. It's all just blossomed.
And the proof is in the performance. I mean, Walton students excel. No matter where they are, no matter where they come from, their performance on standardized tests, their performance overall, their reading levels, all those things, I mean, it works. And so, you know, I think Jim Collins said we have to confront the brutal facts. Well, the brutal facts are this is a school that's succeeding because of the things we're able to do for students. And that's the exciting part of it. We are out of time, and we're going to have to go, but we'd be happy to visit with you informally. Thank you for coming. If you get a chance, like Walton on Facebook and follow what they're doing. And they love to have visitors, so feel free to